So we finally know what is the final ratings and the final viewership of the Wednesday Night War between AEW Dynamite and WWE NXT, because WWE NXT, not surprisingly, wins the final Wednesday Night Wars in total viewership. However, as always and as expected, AEW Dynamite has topped NXT in the key demographic on Wednesday nights. Now, week 78 of the Wednesday Night War, which is also the final week of the Wednesday Night War, saw NXT defeat AEW Dynamite in viewership, but not in ratings in the key demographic. This, of course, is the final head-to-head battle for the two companies, as NXT is moving to Tuesday nights beginning next week after WrestleMania. Wednesday's new edition of Dynamite drew 688,000 live total viewers on TNT, while the live TakeOver Stand and Deliver Night 1 of NXT drew 768,000 viewers on the USA Network. This is according to Nielsen via Showbuzz Daily. Now, it should be noted when we discuss this, it should be noted that TakeOver also aired via the WWE Network on Peacock, offering no commercials, where, of course, the USA Network did have commercials. Now, viewership, of course, for Peacock, it's a privately premium service by NBC Universal, so we're not going to get viewership figures unless NBC Universal or WWE decide to release a press release or something like that. So that's just not going to happen. So whilst that number for NXT was 768,000 live viewers on the USA Network, likely, and again, I don't know the viewership numbers for the WWE Network, I don't know, or Peacock, I don't know how many subscribers they have to that service. WWE was something like 1.8, something like that, 1.8 million. I don't even know if that 1.8 went over to NBC Universal's Peacock streaming service. I don't know how many subscribers they have. I think it's significantly a lot, and you would maybe assume that maybe the casual wrestling fan, the casual fan that maybe isn't a fan of pro wrestling that has Peacock, decide, actually, you know what, I see this NXT thing, this NXT TakeOver event is going on, I've got the streaming service, maybe I'll watch it. So I think in reality, and we always talk about this when we talk about ratings here, that obviously you don't get the DVR numbers. The DVR numbers usually, especially for Dynamite, get Dynamite above 1 million viewers regularly every week, if you include DVR and on-demand and that kind of stuff. And when it comes to NXT this week, I would probably assume they probably had at least 1 million people watching live if you combine the USA Network and you combine Peacock as well. Now, AEW ranked 5th in the cable top 150 for the key 18 to 49 demographic, while NXT ranked 11. AEW ranked 61st in total viewership, whereas NXT ranked 59th in viewership. Now, last week's Dynamite drew 700,000 live viewers on TNT and ranked number 7 in the cable top 150 and 69 in viewership, whereas last week's NXT Go Home show before NXT TakeOver drew 654,000 live viewers and ranked 12th in the cable top 150 and 70 in viewership. So NXT viewership topped AEW Dynamite this week by 11.63%, while AEW rather's 18 to 49 key demographic rating topped NXT by 27.27%. Dynamite was down 1.7% in total viewers this week, so essentially flat from last week, but they were up in the key 18 to 49 demographic by 7.7%. This is the second lowest Dynamite viewership of the year, behind the January 6th show. Of course, that was the show that went up against the significant news coverage of the US Capitol riots. It was tied with the March 17 show for the third lowest rating in the key demographic, behind last week and the January 6 show. Now, this week's AEW viewership is down 0.6% from the same week in 2020, so essentially flat, but the key demographic is up 7.7% from the same week in 2020. Now, NXT viewership was up 17.4% from last week and up 4.8% in the key 18 to 49 demographic rating. This was the best NXT audience of the year, not surprisingly, and the best 18 to 49 demographic. Again, as I mentioned, these numbers do not include the viewership from Peacock and the WWE Network airing, which offered no commercials to any viewers. Now, this week's NXT viewership was up 10.8% from the same week in 2020, while the key demographic was up 15.8% from the same week in 2020. I think when you judge these, the NXT viewership, certainly, you're going to have to judge it on a bit of a curve, I think, to be honest, because comparing it to last year is slightly difficult, because this wasn't a regular episode of NXT, was it? This was a big episode. This was the final episode before they moved to Tuesday, and this was their WrestleMania equivalent in NXT. So I think it would be difficult to judge them and say, well, this is a massive improvement for last year. I think going back to the whole NXT versus AEW debate and all that kind of stuff. It's been proven at this point. NXT moving to Tuesdays absolutely is best, not only for NXT and best for WWE, but it's also best for AEW as well. We've seen at this point that the logic that was there in the 1990s, in the late 90s with the Monday Night Wars, that competition is a good thing. That hasn't changed. Competition is still a good thing, and competition breeds a certain level of quality that we've come to expect when it comes to professional wrestling programs. It forces everyone in the respective companies, whether it's the talent, whether it's the writers, whether it's the producers, whether it's the announce staff, whether it's whoever, whether it's the production staff, whether it's people that put the ring together, it causes them to raise their game and try and beat their competition. Competition's a good thing. But the rivalry of having two wrestling shows in the same time slot on the same night, that idea that worked in the late 90s, that because of the competition and because of the rivalry, people are forced to pick one or the other and it brings more people into the world of pro wrestling, that's not accurate in 2021. That's just not accurate. All it does is divide the fan base. There are pretty much every single week 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, maybe 1.7 million wrestling fans watching wrestling on Wednesday nights. When you have NXT and you have AEW, you just cut them in half. That's what you do. You just cut them in half. And that's what having NXT and AEW on the same night have done. Now, what is going to be really fascinating is the first ratings for NXT and AEW without this competition. I think that's going to be very, very telling, because we've now got to the point where everyone's always been saying, if they moved to different nights, they would do so much better. Well, now's put up or shut up time. I do expect Dynamite to do better in the ratings. I do expect NXT to do better in the ratings. If they don't, then you could say, well, the viewers just haven't followed them to the new night. If you're NXT, they just haven't followed them. So I think they're expecting to do better. They're expecting to do bigger numbers and bigger ratings. If they don't, then questions will be asked. And probably the same with AEW. We might find out that actually those two audiences, which I believe is the case anyway, to be honest, those two audiences are incredibly distinct. They're completely different. One's an older audience for NXT, one's a younger audience, and they like what they like, and they don't have any interest in switching over to the other channel to watching the other promotion just because it's on a different night now. That's going to be interesting to see. That's going to be very interesting to see. And I know a lot of people have said about this being the final week of the Wednesday Night Wars, finally we're not going to be talking about the ratings again, and eventually I think we'll get to the point where we don't. Eventually we will get to the point where we're not talking about the ratings or the viewership anymore, because it's no longer that just constant competition against each other. But initially, for those first few weeks, if anything, there's going to be even more scrutiny on the viewership. There's going to be even more scrutiny on the ratings. Why? Because people are going to see, okay, now you don't have the competition. You don't have the excuse of, wow, there's another pro wrestling program in the same time slot on the same night. If you don't have that excuse, what's your reasoning if people don't tune in? It has to be the product. It has to be the product. So now is the real litmus test of how invested the fans are in your product. If they're invested, if they like what you do, they'll watch, because there's no reason for them not to watch now. If they don't watch, it's because they don't like you. And that's it. So that's certainly going to be very interesting going forward. Now, we do have a few bits of news coming out of NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver Night 1 and 2. Now, I did a watch along and I did some reactions, so I'm not going to go over stuff that we've spoken about before. But after NXT TakeOver Night 1 of Stand and Deliver, we saw that Io Shirai, she dropped the NXT Women's Championship to Raquel Gonzalez. After a reign that nearly spanned a full calendar year, Io Shirai's NXT Women's Championship has come to an end. Now, speaking on the post-show media call, Triple H detailed why they made the decision for Raquel Gonzalez to dethrone the Genius of the Sky. Triple H said, quote, "I've said it a lot in these calls, I've said it a lot in the press, and not because I'm trying to hype the brand, but because I truly believe it. I believe Io Shirai is the best female performer on the face of the planet. I truly believe that. I can't say enough good stuff about her. She's had a monumental reign. Why Raquel Gonzalez? Right woman, right time. She's got a presence. When you see her, it's hard not to think of that she's a star. It's interesting that's all been within the last year and a half. You look at the transition of her debuting with Dakota Kai to where she is now, from the stature to look, to physique, to just everything. She has capitalized on every second of every moment, transformed herself into an absolute star. I think she's just nicking the service. Why her? She put herself in the position for it to be her. Now, obviously, the question now comes, is Io Shirai going to be heading to the main roster? because a main roster call-up after a title loss used to be a tradition for NXT superstars. Recently, unseated champions have sometimes decided to stay on the black and gold brand. Former world championship holders like Adam Cole, Tommaso Ciampa, and Johnny Gargano have all stayed with NXT after dropping the championship. But we've also seen recent call-ups to the main roster, the likes of Rhea Ripley after dropping the NXT Women's Championship. She went up to Monday Night Raw, but her stay was extended after she lost the championship. So Io Shirai's plans are currently uncertain, but Triple H made clear that where she goes next is completely up to the former NXT Women's Champion. This is what he had to say, quote, Io Shirai has earned the right to do what she wants to do. To me, if Io Shirai wants to take time off, she takes time off. If she wants to come back and go after Raquel Gonzalez, she's earned that right. If she wants to do something else for a bit or any of that, she's earned the right to do all of it. It's an interesting thing where whenever somebody loses in NXT, they're so dominant, they're so big, they're so whatever, they have this incredible run, then all of a sudden there's a bump in the road, they lose a match, and everybody goes, clearly they're going to someplace else. Why is that? It's just a funny thing, because anybody in the world loses someplace else, nobody goes. Oh, they're going someplace else. There's always more to do. There's always more to proving you're the best. There's the next challenge, the next competitor. There's the next of all of those things. For me, it's whatever Io wants to do, but I don't see that she's lost one match over the past 300 or something days she's been champion, and all of a sudden she's just moving on. I think it's interesting. Again, I've said this quite a few times that Triple H, I find him very, very humorous in these media calls after TakeOver, because he just loves to take swipes. He loves and lives to take swipes at the wrestling journalism world and all that kind of stuff. I disagree with him saying, "Oh, where are they getting this from? Where are they getting this from?" All of it. Why do they say in NXT all of a sudden you lose a title or you lose a match, you get called up to the main roster? Where are they getting that from? I mean, no, people aren't stupid. We get it from history, because historically that's what's happened. Historically, we're conditioned to think, okay, you were champion for a long time, you lost. What do you do now? And if it's Io Shirai's case, there isn't a lot for her to do. Yes, there's the NXT Women's Tag Team Championship. Is she going to win that? Is that a reason for her to stay in NXT? The answer is no. The answer is no. And frankly, on the main roster, while I think WWE's women's division is incredibly strong, it's the best women's division in the world, Raw or SmackDown or just the main roster in general, of course they would benefit from having someone of the stature of Io Shirai, the quality of Io Shirai on the main roster. It's just without question, isn't it? It's just without question. So I think we could see a scenario where she appears on Monday Night Raw. I think that's the best brand for her. I think matches against the Charlotte Flair, matches against Asuka, matches against Rhea Ripley, matches against Becky Lynch, maybe even Ronda Rousey, who knows. They're the big money matches for Io Shirai on Raw. Obviously, if she goes to SmackDown, you've got the likes of Sasha Banks, Bayley, Bianca Belair. I just think Raw is such a bad program. It's so desperately in need of top talent, and I think Io Shirai is just that. I think she's top talent. So I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if she goes to the main roster, because she's too good. She's too good. And again, that's no disrespect to NXT, but you also have to look at the lay of the land and say, well, what else is there to do? And that there isn't a lot for her to do anymore in NXT, in my opinion. So I think that's the direction that we're going in there. And finally, I did want to talk about this because I mentioned Triple H was on the media call, and Triple H has provided a health and status update on Road Dogg Brian James. Now, WWE Hall of Famer Road Dogg Brian James is back at home resting following his recent health issues. It was believed he suffered a heart attack, but he's already back to work with the NXT brand. Now, it was reported last week that James had been released from the hospital following an apparent heart attack on Thursday, March 25th, after returning home from the NXT TV tapings in Orlando, Florida. James's wife then announced on Tuesday that he had been released from the hospital and that his heart was good. James issued a Facebook update after being released from the hospital and said he has a lot of work to do and some changes to make in regards to his health. In an update, Triple H revealed during Thursday's media call after TakeOver Stand and Deliver Night 2 that James has been resting at home and is doing better. He also revealed that James was working remotely, working a headset during Night 1 and 2 of TakeOver. Here, this is what Triple H had to say, quote, I want to mention that Brian James, Road Dogg, has been at home the last few days. He is recovering, but he is healthy. He is good. He is recovering at home, doing well. We had him set up, so he was on a headset over the last 2 days and, kind of being involved in stuff. As he gets his strength back and everything, feeling good, he will be back at it, being back to him being the Road Dogg in no time. I just wanted to give a shout out to him, and we greatly miss him here. He'll be back soon enough, but he is doing well. So it's great to hear, obviously. Great to hear that Road Dogg is back home and he's resting and he's getting better. Obviously, it was a massive concern when we heard that news about him. So it's great to hear that he's back home, he's resting, and he's already back at work. I was surprised to hear that he's on the headsets. I don't know how involved in the process he would have been. I think it might be a case of him just being on the headsets, just listening in and just making sure that he was involved and making sure that he was still part of the process. I really would be surprised if he was on the headsets, producing or anything ridiculous like that. I mean, the guy had a heart attack literally a couple of weeks ago, and if he's back in the stress of doing live television on back-to-back nights, that is insanity, to be honest. But the main thing is that he's back home and he's resting, and he's getting healthier, and hopefully he'll be back soon to doing what he does best and what he's very valued in doing, and that's producing NXT content. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on possibly Io Shirai moving to the main roster? What are your thoughts on the Road Dogg getting back to health? And what are your thoughts on NXT winning the final edition of the Wednesday Night Wars against AEW Dynamite this week? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, got the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.